Hello everybody, and welcome to the second part of my 33-year gig history, this time the good gig experiences. The first band that I was ever meant to see was Sleepers, and it took me about 3 years that I finally saw them. And they are a humor band, so I was expecting a fun night, and that's exactly what I got. They started off playing songs which I like, and then just like on their records, they have jokes between the songs. At some point they started telling jokes between the songs. Sometimes it might have been just one short joke. Sometimes they might have told several jokes, because it seemed to be very free form, that if anybody came up with a joke, they would tell them. Sometimes they even acted out those jokes like little sketches. They even had an exercise lesson or a session right there on stage. It was really funny gig. Another kind of a funny gig was when we were in Budapest, Hungary. My brother found out that there was a 1950s themed pub there. He had the address, I had the map. We looked up the map that, okay, there's the street. It was like 3 or 4 metro stops away from there. We went there, came to the street, and found out that it was a wrong number. So we started walking the street until we finally came to the correct number and found a pub. We went there, hung out there for some time. My brother found out that there was going to be a gig that evening. And we had something like 2 or 3 hours. So we decided to go to the hotel and then come back that evening to see the gig. And once we got out of the pub, we didn't turn back to the direction where we had came from, but instead I looked at the other direction and I saw that, hold on, that looks somehow familiar. Let's go see what that is. And once we got to the street corner, I realized that we were actually right, like just across a street from our hotel. It was literally 1 minute away from our hotel. So we had walked like 20 or 30 minutes for nothing. So the band was called Jerry Lee's Rock and Roll Service. So the name already told that it was going to be Jerry Lee Lewis type of piano-led music. And we went there and the band started playing, and it became very soon very obvious that they actually weren't very good. And after a few songs, I was already like, let's get the hell out of here. That these guys aren't very good. No point in watching them. But my brother was on, no, let's stay here. Let's watch this band. At first I was kind of annoyed listening to them that they weren't very good. But the pianist, he was really enthusiastic. He was smiling broadly, he was really happy, and he was really going at his piano, but he just couldn't remember the words. Sometimes he might remember like a verse and maybe a chorus, but he never remembered all the words. Sometimes he would sing just complete nonsense, sometimes he would just mumble, sometimes he would not sing anything, just trying to remember how the vocal would go, singing like but he just couldn't remember the words. So yeah, at first I was really annoyed at it, that this isn't good, but after a while my attitude started changing, and I started seeing the funny side of it, and it started feeling like a fun thing, and the further the gig went, the more funny it became. Like we were like rolling on the floor, laughing our asses off, because it was such a mess. The guys couldn't play well. The vocalist couldn't remember the words. It was funny. At some point there was even some girl called out a request, and the pianist went like, yeah, let's play that song. We played that the last time we were here, and the band actually remembered that song. They started playing the song, and they played it quite well. But the vocalist couldn't remember a thing. The only thing that he remembered was the title of the song. Nothing else. He couldn't remember anything. And after about verse and a chorus, the girl actually called out and said, listen, you obviously don't remember the words. So how about if I come up on stage and sing the song? And that's what they did. And the girl sang the song well, actually. So after the initial bad start, it became a really, really funny gig. So yeah, in the end, it was very, very enjoyable. But then there are gigs that you end up enjoying, even though the music isn't really really your type. We used to have concerts here every summer in one of our parks. They were held at, if I remember correctly, on 3 out of 4 Sundays in July. 3 concerts. There were I think 3 bands every day playing. And usually the bands were always playing fast tempo, rocking songs, trying to get the audience to get up and dance and wave your hands and clap your hands. But this one band, I knew them because they had some hits, so I knew a few of their songs, and I thought they were okay, but it wasn't really my kind of thing. But when they came up on stage, they said that just sit down, relax, and let us entertain you, and if you have energy, just move your legs from below your ankles. And I thought that was perfect attitude. This is Sunday afternoon in a park, let's just relax and enjoy. And it was really, really enjoyable gig. Band was called Miljoona Sade, and later on that fall, when they released this album, I went to see them at a club. And this is one of those things that I enjoyed both of those gigs, and I like this album, but I never went to see them again, and I never bought anything else from them. So how do those kind of things happen? Because it's not a unique thing, because same thing has happened with other bands also. But sometimes there are also those that you don't know anything about them. Because when I go to a festival or some event where there's several bands, I usually watch every one of them. And this was one of those occasions. This was a full day event, several bands, and I went to see one band, and then later on the day there was going to be another band that I was interested, so I watched the bands in between. And this band came up on stage. This is Liisa Akimov. On record, she recorded them under her own name, but as live they performed under this name, Akimovskaya Sisters and Brothers. As you can see here in this picture, there are 6 members, but that day they, on top of having percussionist, they also had a drummer, and I believe they also had a second guitarist. So they came up on stage. I knew nothing about them, never heard of them, and they started picking up guitars and bass and piano, trying out them, and the girls tried on the microphones, and a dark-haired girl here, don't know if you can see her, Elisa Korjus, she tested her microphone by saying onko poro eläin, which translates as is a reindeer an animal. And some guy from the audience called out and said, don't worry, it is an animal. And she just said, that's good, now we can start the gig. And at that moment, before they had played a single note, I knew I was going to enjoy this gig. And I was right. It's a bossa nova music. This was very late May, so perfect music for the occasion. I loved it, and I love this album. Okay, then there are gigs where you end up wondering that was this a good gig or was this a bad gig? One of those occasions was when I went to see the band The Posies. When I went to the club, there was a note on the door which said that this gig is going to be recorded for a live DVD, and by entering you will relinquish all your rights for the live recording. I was like, yeah, fine. Go in, band starts playing, and after a couple of songs they started playing bum notes. I mean, not many, just a bum note in one song and then another bum note in another song. And that is actually quite rare. It's not uncommon that some band member like forgets the place and plays something completely different. But playing actual bum notes is kind of rare. So when that had happened a few times, it created sort of like a unnerving feeling. You started waiting for another bum note. But it didn't really ruin it. It just gave a bit awkward feeling. At some point, one of the guy in the audience even called out that stop fucking up those songs, but they calmly just replied, "This is how we always play." Then at some point, I realized that they were like between the songs, they were listening to the mixer talking to them through the monitor, and a couple of songs later, they said that, "Okay, here's the thing. We are going to play a couple of more songs now. Then we are going off the stage, come back, play the encores, and then we are going to play 3 or 4 songs that we started this gig with again." So that's what they did. They played the gig, went off, came back, and they came up like, "Good evening, Helsinki." Then, "Hello, Helsinki. It's great to be here, Helsinki." You know, they did those things so that they could choose the one that they would use on the video to begin the gig with. And then they played those songs. Then they played a couple of songs that they had played in another part of the gig. Then they went back and played those first songs again. And then they played again some of the songs that they had played another part of the gig. So it became very repetitious. They played the same songs over and over again. And I had been there over 2.5 hours when I finally had enough. I was just, okay, I've seen this already, I've heard this, I'm going home now. So in the end, even though I had enjoyed like the actual gig, the end became such a repetitious experience that it left like a bit sour taste, really. It became like again and again. Yeah. Yeah. So was it a good or was it a bad gig? Another same kind of thing was this one. Rival Sons, from which gig I bought this shirt. I sometimes do these things that I don't really know much of anything about those bands. Like with this band, I didn't really know anything about them. I had heard, I think, 2 songs from the radio, and that was it. I just wanted to give it a chance and see how it goes. But there were 2 bad things about it. One was the vocalist. It's not uncommon that the vocalist sing like part of the song with their eyes closed, but he sang every song all the way through with his eyes closed. And even between the songs, the rare occasions that he actually spoke to the audience, he kept his eyes closed. The only times that he opened his eyes was when he turned sideways to look at his band members, and a couple of times he looked up into the ceiling. So that gave us like an awkward feeling, like he was creating distance between him and the audience. I have seen the band a couple of times later, and he doesn't do that so much anymore, but back then he just kept his eyes closed. And the other thing was that like first half of the gig they only played like slow or mid-tempo songs, so it didn't like create any momentum. It was like staying still. The gig just didn't really move along until they started playing like the second half of the gig. They played fast songs, and that was the part that I really enjoyed, but like half of the gig had already gone. But yeah, I have their records and I have seen them live again, so I have good things to say about, but for that gig, not so much. So some people can name their favorite gigs, but I can't name. I have seen a lot of great gigs. But I thought that if I would divide my concert experiences into some kind of categories, could I pick a favorite gig from then? And I came up with the best stadium gig that I have ever seen, because I have only seen like 20 or 30 stadium gigs. But I have to say that the other 4 gigs on my top 5 come up like just a hair away from being as good as the best one. And those other 4 have been the 3 times that I have seen Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band and AC/DC in 2009. But the best one was Rolling Stones. The first time that I saw Rolling Stones was in 1998. And before the gig, I made up with a few of my friends, and one of the guys had the set list printed. And I always try to avoid seeing any information about the gig. But when he pulled out the paper, I tried to look away, but I did glance at it, and I noticed that they are going to start with Satisfaction. And I was like, why do they start with Satisfaction? So we went to the gig, and it started with the lights going down, which doesn't actually help much at all, because during summer it's so bright here, so that the lights doesn't make much of any difference at all. But anyway, when the gig started, the lights went down, and they started with the setting like several floodlights, creating like one spot on the stage. And it started with Keith Richards walking up on stage alone, and he had this long leather jacket with him, and he started turned sideways and hit the riff with his guitar, and I knew that's why they started with Satisfaction, because right from the opening riff, the whole audience was right there, and it was a brilliant gig. I loved it. I thought it was just brilliant. And walking home from that gig, I remember that I decided right there and then that this was such a brilliant gig that next time they come here, I will go see them, even though I know that the next time it won't be as good as this time. But I will go see them just because this one was such a brilliant gig. But come the next time on this Licks tour in 2003, they were even better. It was the best stadium gig that I have ever seen. Brilliant from start to finish, brilliant show, played so fantastically, great songs, and I especially have to give a special mention to Ronnie Wood. I think his playing was absolutely brilliant. He played really, really great. My personal high point of the gig was the song Can't You Hear Me Knocking from Sticky Fingers. Brilliant, brilliant gig, absolutely brilliant. I loved it from start to finish. Yeah, I have seen a lot of great gigs at stadium, but I would say that this one was the best one. And if you are interested in hearing yourself how they played, find out the clips from the 4 Flicks DVD. It's much better than the live album that was released from this tour, Live Licks. Yeah, 4 Flicks, much better. Okay, that was it this time. Next time, the bad concert experiences. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment. Bye.